Tonight, our challenge is to have a look at the value that there is in vintage champagne. So tonight we've got 8 pairs, 16 champagnes, and our concept is to look at the vintage category versus the prestige cuvée category. Typically, the prestige cuvées are 2 to 3 times the price. So we're just sort of laying it out there for you to say, have a look at these, and my idea is the vintage offer fantastic value. So let's see whether we prove that through the night. And then really, the idea of the scoring is to tell us which is your favourite, I guess. So we're scoring in Jancis' own scoring system between 15 and 20. We've removed the ones below 15 because that's, I'm confident there's no faults in the champagnes tonight. That's the scoring system. There is a prize. Whoever gets the most right tonight, we have Laurent Perrier's new non-vintage cuvée, La Cuvée. So a magnum is the prize to whoever gets the most correct today. And we'll probably exclude certain people in the press. Certain members of the press and trade might be excluded, I think. I'd just like to introduce you to Jancis, who I spent some time with recently doing some research for this tasting, and I'm not going to say anything more than that. And in the last few years, she's guided us through superbly an evening of, I think we'll call it discovery tonight. And Jancis is really the partner we picked because as one of the world's leading wine critics, there's really nobody else who could do this job. So I don't want to say anything more than welcome, Jancis.
Thank you.
And we're now in your hands.
Lovely. Good. Well, thank you very much for organising this. I certainly don't claim to be a champagne expert. We have Susie Barry and Giles there, who are champagne specialists. I'm just going to be an MC to keep the ball rolling. And actually, I know you're saying, you know, there's a prize for who gets the most wines right. But for me, the interesting thing about these blind pairs of comparison will be to see which ones we prefer more than identifying. You know, sometimes I think I'm right in saying you've chosen current vintages as much as possible, right? So sometimes some houses have such demand for their prestige cuvées that their prestige cuvées may not always be quite ready to enjoy, whereas perhaps the vintage wines will be more ready. And therefore, I don't think, from my point of view, it would be a mistake in that circumstance to prefer the vintage one, even though it costs a lot less than the perhaps slightly unready prestige one. And as you know, throughout my far too long wine writing life, I've always been looking for value. And who knows, perhaps tonight we will find some really relatively well-priced vintage wines. We are utterly, from the point of view of fairness, doing it in alphabetical order by house. So we'll do a little bit of forwards and backwards in terms of vintages. Nick said, I think it'd be a very good idea to go to Champagne and do some tasting in advance. Visited 9 champagne houses in 2 days. And it was a lovely, very well organised trip. The other one, not the 8 that we're tasting today, plus we thought we'd drop in on Krug. And of course, we're not comparing Krug non-vintage vintage and prestige cuvée tonight because they have a very different system of wines that they present to us. The pair of wines that you are about to taste are Bollinger Grande Année 2007, current vintage, I think, and R.D. 2002. And of course, Bollinger is very different from everybody else. They don't specifically make a prestige cuvée. They choose one of their vintage dated wines to be a late release, as in their recently disgorged RD release. So the RD 2002 is the same wine as the Grande Année 2002 that was released much earlier. I'll give you a few facts and figures about each pair of wines, but the facts and figures, of course, don't give you immediate clues as to which wine is which. Bollinger, of course, is a very, very distinctive house, blessed with a lot of vineyard, 170 hectares, and very Pinot dominated. There's 60 to 80% in all vintage dated cuvées. And all of the wine for vintage is fermented in barrel, which is a distinguishing mark. And they pride themselves on aging on lees the Grande Année for at least 6 to 10 years. And they're one of the few houses, along with Paul Roger, who still do hand riddling. With the exception of Moët, all of the vintage wines are in Magnum, right? Yeah. Because that's kind of Nick's idea of slightly favouring, showing the vintage wines to their absolutely best ability. And the team at Bollinger said that their Grande Année 2007 will definitely be released eventually as an RD wine. I note that when at the end of August, I actually preferred the Grande Année 2007 to the RD 2002. It wasn't always the case when we were tasting these pairs that we necessarily preferred the more expensive wine. And this was a particular example of preferring the less expensive from my point of view. I think that's it. Yeah, yeah. Most people have got the two, so we'll have a little time for quiet tasting and reflection.
So Champagne 1 appears to be the RD, according to everyone, which means not many think Champagne 2 is RD, I assume. So there we go. So is that the result?
Surely. We'll be very upset if it's not. Oh, sorry. Yes, surely. Yes. So 1 is the older wine, which is much. I think this may be one of the easiest pairs, actually. And I think it's the oldest wine. The 02 is the oldest wine we're tasting tonight, isn't it? No? Oh, we've got apart from the next prestige cuvée, the 95 Blanc de Millénaires. This is the oldest wine. So, and I think it does taste drier, older, and I do think in this case it's got that sort of mushroomy. You wouldn't say the first wine was bursting with fruit. It's kind of got lots of age, but not fruit is not its main suit, I would say. Whereas I think the 07 Magnum is a lovely wine, actually, and jolly nice to drink now. The RD was on the lees 11 years, and the Grande Année for 6 years. But actually, this is a different bottling from the one that we tasted in Champagne, because according to my crib here, this particular RD 2002 was disgorged in October 14, not, as I said, the one we tasted was January this year. And the Grande Année 07 in Magnum was disgorged in June 16. So I think, personally, for sheer drinking, we don't know. Are we going to find out which wine people preferred? Is that? Shall we do that?
I neglected my job. So we've got some scores in. People are jumping ahead a little bit. And which you can do. So,
yes.
I think they're almost identical, aren't they?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's inconclusive.
And no, but it's no. I think it's a stylistic thing, isn't it? And it's just, do you like that sort of very Bollinger-y, dry sort of almost smoking a pipe type style, or are you looking for a bit more fruit? And do you think that perhaps wine number 2 is not what you expect of Bollinger? It's a little bit too flirtatious and fruity and so forth. So, you know, I think it's not surprising it's equal. Grande Année is 7, and RD is 4, in this our particular pair. So I'm grateful. So perhaps I won't pontificate about what the dosages were and what the disgorgement dates were of the wines we tasted in Champagne, because they may well be very different from what we're actually going to taste tonight. All right. Right. So I think that's very interesting, and I think that vindicates our exercise, that you know, you've got half and half of what people prefer. But if you're looking for pleasure per pound, then perhaps in this particular instance the Grande Année is the better buy, looking at these two figures here.
The pricing of the two is it's about £80 for, it's probably 85 actually for the Grande Année, and the RD would be where's any of my team? It's very scarce. The RD would be about 170.
170, yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. So quite a big difference. Yeah. And that is the pattern through most of what we're tasting.